Hello everyone, in part 4 of this series I'm gonna show you how to make a typing message like tweening. Let's see the game and when walk up to the shop and talk to the man and buy the letter. After that, when you click on the letter, the message was showing up with characters showing one by one like a typewriter style. In this chapter, you will see how I created a function to handle that and can be used as a module for later similar use. Let's get started. Here you go. I show up the function that I created for this typing animation. That's essentially the function that made to display the message. This method is called display message. We need two inputs. One is the letter content that's holding the necessary message we want to print on the screen. The second one is the list holding all the characters for the letter content. This letter content is actually coming from the inventory data.py. Here I show the string that I created for it, and letter list by assigning the list function. Now chars in letter equals list of letter. To know what kind of list would it be, let's print this list and you will know what I mean. Going back to inventory.py under the display message method, let's type print. What we want to print is the letter list which is coming from the import. Under this method, you will see that we have a letter. This is coming from the inventory.py. Before you can do that, you have to import from inventory.py. That's the command that from inventory data import everything. Now let's print the letter list. If we run this game, you will see the letter characters are typing one by one. As you can see, this list is containing all the single characters for the whole statement string in the letter. If you look at them carefully, you will see these characters were coming from the letter string that we had built. The list command in Python comes in handy when dealing with the sentence. Now we can delete this print command. After that, within the display message method, in the self.message text, it's by default to be empty. And by adding up each of the characters, we are able to display the message like this. Here you go. When I print this message, this character will show one by one within a period of time. As you can see, it's like a typewriter style. This is like a words triangle. Here is the major procedure I had done. In the first code, the screen is to blit a message surface and placed at the roughly middle of the screen. Then fill up the screen with a particular color, for example, a brown color. And then we set a rectangle to the surface image so that we can have proper coordinates to place these images. After that, we assign a rectangle to the message image surface. Here I set up a timer. If not self.timer by default, it's not active. Here is the timer class. The time function is simple. You just need to input the time duration. By default, self.active is false. And once the time is timeout, self.active will return to false. When the timer is on, self.active is true. Here is the update method where it will update time value. The current time will subtract the previous time, and when the time reaches a certain value, it will call the self.timeout function. If the timer is not active and if the index has not reached to the end, that is when the index is less than the length of letter list -1, then do the following. Firstly, turn the timer on, and then increment the message index by 1, and then self.message text to be add 1 character at each loop. Then after updating the index, the self.message text is keeping on adding new characters to its string. For each loop, the self.message index will increase by 1, and so is the position of character, and self.message text will also add up all the characters each time. Else if we are looping to the end of the list, then we will empty the whole self.message text. And then, reset the self.message index to be 0. Since we are at the end, we can just exit the display by saying self.showMessage becomes false. Finally, since we block the player movement at the beginning, we need to release the player movement by setting self.unblockPlayer. This method was created before to change the player's movement attribute. Now we had finished the display content. Next is to blit them on the screen. For character in self.message text, then we check the end of line symbol, which is hashtag. If you find the letter content, I have put the hashtag at the end of each sentence so that the code will recognize it and implement the courage return. If this is really the hashtag, then we just render an empty character. If it is not the hashtag, we just render the normal character here. Then we increment the count, which is for the spacing of the X position of the character. We also increment the number of rows as well so that it will update to the next line. Looks like I have the same if statement. Let's combine it to have a cleaner code here. Then we have X and Y position with some spacing added and relation to the count and row. Its position X is related to the message rect.left, and then add some spacing with the variable called count times a certain spacing. For the Y position, we are using message.rect.top and add some spacing and then with the variable rows times the Y padding. Finally, we have self.message text to be blit with the converted image from the render function and the position being the X and Y. Now the game is running. Let's see what happens. We talk to the shop owner as usual and buy the letter. Then we try to click on the letter. Yes, here you go. You see the characters are now appearing like a typewriter style. Awesome. So here is pretty much the whole function. If you find it useful, you just copy that method and paste to your codes. So by entering two inputs, the letter content and the list of letter content to pass as arguments, and this method is to return none. And the output is the typing style display of essay. If you want to change the content, what you're going to do is to change the string here in the inventory data.py file. If you look at carefully the letter content, the first row was not aligned with the second row. Let's fix this. Let's relocate the count position and try again. Here you go, the second row is now aligned with the first row. We also see another problem. It looks the first T was missing in the content. Let's fix it also. We should always increase the self.message index only after the first character being assigned to the self.message text. Otherwise, it will always start with 1 instead of 0. As you know, 0 is always refer to the first position in the list instead of 1. Here I would like to add some background for the text. As you see, I define image equal to the pygame.image.load and then use the scale function to scale up to 1200 in width and 400 in height, which should fits. Here you see the scale.png image, which is located under the directory of inventory. Now everything looks fine. Let's run the game and see what happens. Here shows the letter T is now appearing. Awesome. Everything is fixed. So that's the end of this video. Please give a like or subscribe this channel. Thank you. Bye-bye.